Hello divas, dudes, and dolls, I'm Caricature, and welcome back to my hooked, haunting, and horrific little review show, Very Slay, where we go over each and every floor show look on the Boulet Brothers Dragula Season 6. And it's the long-awaited Dead by Daylight challenge this episode for our top 4 in their final efforts in order to make it to the grand finale next week. I can't wait for a season to be done. You have no idea how over the moon I am about that. But for the challenge this week, the final 4 monsters had to design killer looks based off of the idea of cryptids and urban myths. I was kind of surprised nobody went Mothman or Flatwoods Monster. I feel like both of those are like really common. Even the jackalope I think would have been kind of fun to see as a concept. Y'all should know how this show works by now. When we get into the looks, if I think that it met the brief, got the job done, but wasn't anything amazing, we give it an okay. If I thought it knocked out of the park and activated all kinds of generators, we give it a slay. And if I think it's gonna be sacrificed to the entity, we give it a nay. And that's all in efforts to find my weekly slay of the day, my favorite look of the entire episode, and whatever look takes that top spot today will go head to head against anti-heroine's monochromatic monsters look to battle it out to be one step closer towards being this season's slay of the season, whichever look holds that title at the end of next week's episode. I'm going to be doing a lovely little illustration of, and you can find sneak peeks of that illustration over on my Patreon soon at some point, hopefully, along with everything else I'm working on. And as those come out, there will also be a bonus video going over the unaired monsters looks that we did get to see from the ones who posted anything throughout this competition process. That's also gonna be a patron exclusive bonus video for my $5 tier patrons, my good G's and Judies. You can also join for free and get a lovely little This Week in Drag TV discussion post and get in all up in there on that to find out my thoughts and opinions on the episodes at large this week across everything that we're currently reviewing. But you can also like, comment, subscribe, all those lovely little things. It all goes such a long way. We are getting ever so closer to 1,000 subs, and every sub counts. So please be sure to do that. It's a free way to support the channel. Super easy and greatly appreciated either way. Let's talk about these 4 looks. Alrighty, starting us off this week, we have challenge winner Asia Consent, who took more of a wintry Wendigo approach to this. I thought the look was really cool, actually, pun intended. I like that she went icy with it. The weapon, I adored. The weapon I think was my favorite part of the whole thing. Sometimes I get a little like, if people are doing like indigenous cultural creatures like Wendigos, because they become like really overdone and pretty stereotypically done. And I'm not indigenous, so I'm not one to say if this is authentically accurate culturally or not, or if it's faithful or whatever the case may be. I think just on an aesthetics level, this is cool. I think this is, of the 4, the rightful winner, this is the one that looks the most like a Dead by Daylight character. You can really tell that she knows the game inside and out in terms of the character design, because she really took like that into the approach of the weapon that splits into 2 to be 2 twin blades that she, you know, goes to town stabbing and killing with. Really well done design details, and it's still very true to her brand. I don't know how they're gonna get around the tits for the game. We'll just have to find out, because she's gonna be in the game, which is pretty fierce that we're getting a trans woman of color in Dead by Daylight in this capacity. So like, that's pretty fierce. It's a slay for me. Then we have anti-heroine, who's doing another indigenous creature. But for me, I wasn't familiar with this one enough to know if the idea that she went with worked enough. I think it's still really good either way, but my biggest issue that I have with this is the wings. Not just because the wing shapes are a little, not crunchy, but they don't look like fully realized in terms of like a lived-in character. I think this is a moment where Auntie didn't totally think through the fact that, like, if this is gonna be a character put into a game, you have to think about how the character's gonna have to be animated and how they're gonna model it. And like the director from the game said, this would be a nightmare to put together in the game because her character just wouldn't fit the doors. And that's kind of important to be able to do. I loved the makeup. I loved the nails though. I loved the signature anti-heroine glamour approach to this challenge. Either way, I think it's still really good. I think it is definitely deserving of being in the finale, but I am gonna give this look an okay this week. Then we have Gray Matter. This is probably one of the smaller ones we've seen Gray do, other than his Ghost Train look. And I think it works. I'm sure the gays and all the people thirsting after Gray were going feral watching this episode. This is a male chest plate. I think the way he handled it was really well done in terms of the coloring and the paint job on it. To be fair, It took me a while to clock it. Part of that is due to how shittily shot the floor shows usually are. I think that it was still pretty good. I liked the approach. I liked the goat idea. It was kind of giving me Black Phillip, like, wouldst thou like to live deliciously kind of energy. But I thought that was an interesting direction to take it, to go more goat. I just really wasn't sure what the cryptid or the urban myth necessarily was. I think of the 4 grays was the one we really didn't get an explanation on in any capacity, really. I think it's still really successful, and I could see this being zhuzhed up a little bit, but still being put in the game, so I'm gonna give it a slide. And then finally, we have our dearly departed Yuri, who just missed out on the final 3. And her little mud mermaid look here, I think is cool. I think in terms of the way she moved and it being a gown would allow for like really interesting animations, like she's in a mud trail that's just like constantly moving around, and the claws are really cool. It made sense. I think it's a really successful just look on its own. Where her look falls flat is that mud mermaids, I think, are more of an Indiana thing than an Illinois thing. So that's strike 1. Strike 2, every time she pronounced Illinois, she called it Illinois, and even Drac called it Illinois. It's not Illinois. The S is silent. I thought this look was pretty solid, despite the fact I did think that while Auntie's look is the one that like least made sense for translating it into a video game character, I think Yuri's look is just like the least fully realized as a concept. So I'm also gonna give her look an okay this week. I do have to say, she had far and away the most iconic extermination of any contestant in the history of Dragula. I laughed so hard the whole time. And I think it's really only fair that somebody who's had this kind of like unserious energy for the entirety of the competition gets to have an incredibly unserious send-off like this. This is gonna be like one for the books, in my opinion. We're gonna be talking about this death scene for years and years to come. And with that, it's time to pick my slave of the day, my favorite look of the week. And I think far and away, it has to go to Asia Consent here. She really knocked it out of the park. Clearly the best choice for the win this week. That being said, when I put this look up against Auntie's look, I still think Auntie's is my favorite out of these 2. So it's gonna be up to Auntie, Gray, or Asia to present something next week, and it's probably, knowing me, going to be in the glamour category that I'm gonna be such a sucker for. It's gonna unseat this look, but we'll just have to find out. In the meantime, be sure as always to like, comment, subscribe, all those lovely little things once again, and we will see you next week right here, at some point at least, for the final review of this Dragula season. So thank you all for the continued support as always, but be sure to go out there, y'all. Stay kind, stay queer, and make sure that your day is very slay.